Have you ever worn being a hard worker as a badge of honor? Or have you felt as though your identity is so wrapped up in what you do for work that you don't know how to separate from it? Because if yes, this is the podcast episode for you. Today on the No Bullshit Manifestation Show, we're going to be talking about detaching your worth from your work and why this is so important, not only for your manifestations, but also for just being in your feminine energy and learning how you can magnetize your desires versus feeling like you have to work so damn hard for them all of the time. And in addition to this, we're also going to be talking about why you may have attached your worth to your work in the first place. What's up, and welcome to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show, the podcast that demystifies all of the nonsense that surrounds manifestation and gives you a realistic view of what it's like to be on a personal, professional, and spiritual growth journey. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, manifestation and money mindset expert, and I'm so happy you're here. Let's fucking do this thing. So attaching my worth to my work was something that I had done all of my life up until doing the healing work a few years ago. But the crazy thing was that I didn't even realize that this was something that I was experiencing at the time. And I think that so much of that is because in our society, we applaud those who are burning themselves out in the name of hard work, those who wear hard work as a badge of honor, and we tell people that they are not worthy of something if they're not working hard for it. And this narrative and the actions and the behaviors that manifest as a byproduct of it then lead people to believe that their worth is directly attached to their work. And for me, like I said, this was an experience that I had my entire life up until doing the healing work and even into the healing work, because growing up, I saw my parents as hard workers. Both of them worked their asses off, and both of them really created this narrative around the fact that we were the kind of people that had to work hard for what we wanted, whereas some people just didn't have to do that. And as I entered into the workforce, I immediately started working as much as I could, working overtime, putting in as much energy and effort as I possibly could to the job, and really found so much satisfaction and validation in that for my worthiness and who I was as a human being. But I remember so clearly back in January of 2021, I had just started working with my life coach, and we were having a conversation, and every single conversation that we had had on our previous calls up until that point were about my business, about how I could make more money, about attracting clients, about everything work related. And if I wasn't hitting the marks that I wanted and thought I needed inside of my business, I felt like shit about myself. And he stopped me and paused and said, "What do you like to do for you? Not what do you like to do in order to work better or be better or get better results, but what do you like to do?" And I sat there for a moment and I paused and I was scrambling and I was umming and ahhing and trying to figure it out, trying to come up with some sort of answer, but I had no answer to this. I had no answer to what it was that I actually liked, what I thought about myself independent of my work. And it felt like my world honestly was crumbling around me. I remember after that call, I grabbed my journal and I drove to a lake nearby. I was living in Denver at the time, and I sat on a park bench and I journaled for hours trying to figure it out, trying to understand and identify what it is that I genuinely just enjoyed doing for me and what I identified with outside of the work that I've done throughout my life. And it all felt very murky, and it felt like there was nothing really there. And if there was anything there, it was nothing that I was that proud of or that I liked that much or could really find a sense of pride or worthiness in. And again, it kind of felt like my world was crumbling around me in that moment because I had put all of my identity and all of my worth into being an entrepreneur and knowing how to work hard. So when I took this step back and I realized, one, that I didn't really know who I was independent of that, And two, I didn't feel like my existence was valid without the success that I had created for myself. I was like low-key devastated. And this is where the real inner work for me actually started. And I share this story because I know so many of you who are listening, so many women experience the exact same thing. They don't even realize that their worth is tied up in their work or what they accomplish on a day-to-day basis until they are brought to a moment where this question is actually illuminated for them. So right here, before we continue, I want you to ask yourself, do I base how I feel about myself and what I believe I am worthy of based on how much I work or what I do for work or what I have accomplished or what I can accomplish or the money that is coming into my bank account? Are you the kind of person that tells yourself that you can only get up and go to the bathroom until you've accomplished a certain amount of work, or that you can only eat that day if you've done a workout, or that you're only allowed to go out and have fun if the house is clean, or that you're unworthy of the partner that you desire to have until you achieve some sort of level of success in your life? All of these things are sneaky ways that equating your worth to your work or how much you can accomplish shows up in your life. And when you are doing this, you're essentially setting these conditions within your energy, within your vibration of what you're available for and what you're not available for based off of your own perception of self. When you tell yourself that you are unworthy of something until you've reached some sort of level of success or you've crossed enough things off of your to-do list, then you are setting the standard of what you are available for. And majority of the time, like I said, we're not even consciously aware of this. These are such sneaky subconscious things and narratives that play out for so many women on a day-to-day basis until they're really brought to this moment where they have to look at, oh my gosh, have I been equating my worth to my work? Have I been telling myself that I am only capable of or available for certain things in my life if I reach some sort of standard of success that I am holding for myself? And I want you to know that if this resonates with you, you are not alone. This is by far the top limiting belief, one of the top limiting beliefs that I have seen hundreds of high achieving women experience over the past 4 years of coaching. And I want you to also know that because you learned this in the first place, because of the people or experiences or social narratives that have led you to equating your worth to your work in the first place, because you learned that, you have the power to unlearn it and learn something that is so much more supportive to you. And like I said, this is one of the most challenging things that I have overcome in the past 2.5 years since really diving deep into the inner work. And I have finally been able to understand like what led me to believe this in the first place, and know that if I have the power to do this, if I have the power to identify what it was for me and heal from that and overcome it, you have the power to do the same thing. You have the power to detach your worth from what you do for work or what you're accomplishing in a day or how much money is rolling into your bank account, and really source your worth from this internal knowing of that it's not in question. Regardless of how much you can or will accomplish, your worth is not in question. And that is something that we are going to be diving deeper into inside of this podcast episode. But before we go any further, I just want to remind you that my brand new feminine embodiment program, The Source, is open for enrollment now and until September 30th. Learning how to return home to and cultivate your feminine essence is the key to overcoming burnout, detaching your worth from your work, connecting deeply to your intuition, and overall just living a life of true alignment and authenticity. And this is exactly what I will help you do inside of The Source. There are very limited spots left available inside of the source, but as a bonus for the next 2 people that join the source, you will get an additional one-on-one coaching call with me throughout this program. So this is such a massive bonus, such a massive benefit of choosing to come on board and become a part of the source. You can find the link down below in the show notes to claim your spot inside of the source today and truly be able to return home to that feminine essence and live a life of more ease, flow, fulfillment, inspiration, intuition, and magnetism. But with that being said, let's dive back into how you can actually start to heal from attaching your worth to your work. There's a few different ways that I want to help you approach healing from attaching your worth to your work. But the first one I want to dive into is your identity. So this is one of the most key parts of detaching your worth from your work, because your identity is what you manifest without question. What we identify with is what we know with absolute certainty, those beliefs that we hold, the embodiment that we carry, and therefore that is the vibration that we are naturally living and existing in. And because we are naturally living and existing in that vibration, that means that we will manifest it. And I want you to think about this for yourself right now. Think about what you identify with, and think about the fact that what you're identifying with, the beliefs that you have about yourself and about life, and the way that you show up for yourself and show up for your life is the way in which your life is unfolding. It is the way in which your life is manifesting. So if your worth is so directly correlated to your work, that means that you will feel that you are only good, worthy, lovable, so on and so forth, if you are working hard. If your business or career path or whatever it may be, checking the things off of your to-do list is creating the result that you desire. And if it is not, then you probably feel like shit about yourself. Again, this is because of your identity. So in order to start to detach your worth from your work, it requires you to start to form a sense of identity outside of that work. It requires you to look at who you are independent of the work or of the tasks that you put on your plate every single day, and understand who you are at your core. And this is one of the most major things that we focus on inside of all of the programs that I have, is understanding who you are at your core, understanding what your core values are, understanding what your soul, what your intuition is saying to you, because this helps you understand, independent of what you are doing in the world, the to-do list that you are checking off, the results that you are creating, who you are. And this was such a massive thing for me when I started to understand and identify who I was independent of the work that I was putting out into the world. I started to see the value that I really actually held for myself, with the fact that I was such a good friend, that I was a good daughter, that I felt confident in the way that I moved and operated in my body, that I was an adventurer, that I loved travel, that I was ever changing and soft and kind and present and excited. And these were all things that I was able to cultivate and see and just naturally embody outside of my business, outside of the work that I had been doing. And through actually being able to identify this and then allow that to be what I saw as my identity, of course I still cared about the business. And of course I still wanted to help the people that I wanted to help and make an impact in the way that I wanted to make an impact. But that wasn't the most important thing about me. That wasn't the most interesting thing about me. That was just a part of the pie, just a piece of the equation. And all of these other things, all of these other parts of myself that I had put on the back burner for such a long time and I devalued because they weren't being monetized, or they weren't being put out into the world as a message of how to make impact, but they were still important. And again, throughout all of this, I'm going to be giving reflections on my life, but I want you to be able to reflect back to yourself and see, how does this maybe implement into your life? Where are you sleeping on yourself and not allowing yourself to see the value that you hold, the worthiness that you are, independent of your work, independent of the task that you put on your plate? Starting to identify those things and bring light to them, bring attention to them, bring emphasis to them, illuminate them for your subconscious mind to see, because when we are healing, when we are rewiring the structure of the subconscious mind, you have to bring awareness to those things. You have to shine a light on them and bring your conscious awareness to it so that you can actually start to create those new neural pathways that will then, with time and consistency, just see the worth that you hold. So that is one of the most important steps in healing from this. And one of the most important places that you can start is taking a look at your identity, looking at how diverse your identity actually is and how many parts of the puzzle you are ignoring because your worth is currently tied up in your work. But in addition to that, and this is one that I kind of tied into with your identity, but taking a deeper dive with it, is getting to know yourself and getting to know what you like. Getting to know yourself and getting to know what you like is such a fun and exciting thing. It's kind of like you're a kid again. It's kind of like you are being taken out to recess and you have the opportunity to play in the way that you used to play, or go to art class in the way that you used to go to art class, or go to PE or whatever it was that really lit you up as a kid. But really starting to get to know yourself again. Who are you? What do you like? What don't you like? What things do you want to try? What little whispers have you been getting from your intuition that maybe you've been ignoring because it hasn't felt logical or practical, or it hasn't felt like something that is going to bring you the greatest result or amount of money? Allow yourself to do those things. I remember back in 2019, prior to going on my self-development journey, I said all the time that I hated cooking. I hated cooking. I hated cooking. I hated cooking. I had worked in the food and beverage industry my entire adult life prior to that, to be fair. So I didn't have to do a ton of cooking because, one, I was working all the time because I identified with my work. I tied my worth into my work. So I was always fucking working. But in addition to that, I didn't value anything that wasn't going to bring me money. So I just didn't put any time, energy, or effort into cooking, especially because I would have had to get the right kitchen equipment and I would have had to buy ingredients and all of these things. I was like, there's no value in that. And I was having a conversation with a friend at the time where I was off of work for a week or so. And she was like, well, are you going to cook this week? Like, what do you want to do for you? What do you want to like dive into and explore this week? I was like, no, why would I cook? Like, I'm going to be researching like side hustles and things that I can be doing to make more money. And I remember the look on her face where she was so confused. She was like, like everything has to be centered around money. And that was my truth. Everything had to be centered around money. I didn't believe I was worthy or that things held value unless they were going to bring me money in some sort of capacity. My worth was so tied up into work and the money and the result that I could create from it. And it's really interesting looking back on that now, because one of my favorite things to do now is cook. I actually went out this morning and went grocery shopping and got so many beautiful, fresh, seasonal ingredients so that I can make some fun, like autumnal recipes, because we're heading into fall. Thank God. I'm over summer. I'm a fall girly. All my fall girlies, hey, I see you. But it's now one of my favorite things because I just love the way that I feel when I am cooking. I love that I get to put on music and dance around. I love that I get to taste things. I love that I get to experiment and play with different spices and flavors and ingredients and see what comes from it. Prior to healing my worth, I didn't think it was important. I just didn't think it was important. But now, getting to know myself, understanding what I like, and giving myself permission to do that has opened up so many doorways to explore those different things. And what I want to say in this is like, let this be your permission slip to go explore, to go do things just for the sake of doing things, to do things just because they sound fun or just because you've been curious. Life is your playground. You get to have fun. You get to do the things that you desire, but you have to give yourself permission to do them first. If you do not give yourself permission to do them, then you'll probably stick to what you feel as though you need to do in order to feel a certain way about yourself. And in alignment with the conversation that we are having, that's probably work, or do things around the house, clean the house, do the laundry, get the groceries, whatever it is, those things that you feel as though you need to do in order to move the needle forward. But when you're only doing those things and not giving yourself permission to get to know yourself, understand the inner workings of your heart and soul, and experiment with what it is that you actually like to do, then it's going to lead you to feeling very burnt out. It's going to lead you to feel very stressed or lackluster about life. And this is our one and only life that we get in these human bodies. So why? Why would we choose that experience when all it takes is us giving ourselves permission to dive into and understand ourselves on a deeper level and really detach from the need to have to work all the time? So that is your second one, getting to know yourself and understanding what you like. And third is reconnecting to your feminine essence and intuition. So if you follow me over on Instagram, you will see that last week I actually hosted a free 5-day feminine embodiment workshop. And for anybody who doesn't follow me on Instagram, you can definitely go over there and still check out this workshop. It is still on my profile. It's underneath the guides. There's like a guide section on Instagram, which is new to me. I didn't really know that until one day I was scrolling on a friend that I have here in the city, and she has so many guides to different restaurants in the city. And I was like, what? So there is a guide over on my Instagram profile now of this 5-day feminine embodiment workshop. But with that being said, I bring this up because this is such a powerful resource beyond this podcast episode. Of course, I'm going to go into in just a moment about the feminine energy and why it's so powerful for helping you disconnect your worth from your work. But there's so much that I poured into this workshop. There are free guides that go along with every single day of the workshop. So if you're wanting a taste of that, definitely go follow me on Instagram. The link to my Instagram is down below in the show notes, but you can also search Kat Kozad Coaching and go over there and find those. But the feminine essence is the energy of play, pleasure, curiosity, inspiration, intuition, magnetism. And that is an energy that doesn't require you to work so damn hard in order to get what you want. That is an energy that when you can tap into it and access it, it naturally magnetizes the things that you desire and the things that are meant for you into your life. But in order to get into your feminine essence, it requires you to put down the masculine mask. It requires you to take off your shield, take off your armor, and open yourself back up to life. And as I'm saying that, I'm even like stretching my hands out over my chest, opening my chest up, feeling that spaciousness in your chest, around your heart, and being open to life. Because when you're attaching your worth to your work, you're likely closed off. You may be achieving really great things. You may be creating a bigger and bigger impact, but in some sort of way, you're closed off because you don't want anything to derail you or take you away from the progress that you are making, because that would mean that your worth would be in question. But when you are embodied in your feminine essence, you know that your worth is not in question. Your worth has been predetermined for you. That because you are part of the divine and you are an extension of the universe living this human experience, that you've always been worthy and you will always be worthy. This has been one of the biggest things for me, and it ties so much into why my worth was so attached to my work, was because I always felt like I was inherently flawed. I always felt like something was wrong with me. I always felt like I was kind of fucked up, and that if I couldn't do things on the surface level to cover that up, that then somebody would notice how fucked up I was at my core, and I wouldn't be worthy of the things that I had created due to that very underlying drive of fear, scarcity, and lack. But coming home to my feminine essence and really allowing myself to believe in my worth, anchor into my body, love my body, connect to my inspiration, connect to the intuition, connect to the divine, has left me feeling just so whole. I feel so whole these days. I've heard from so many of you who listen to the podcast, so many of you who have been past clients or follow me over on Instagram, that you felt this energetic shift within me. And it's truly because before I was moving and operating from this energy of I'm inherently flawed, and because of that, I must show up in a certain way, to where I am now of I am whole. I am perfect as I am. I can choose to continue to grow and expand. And of course I will always do that, but I am worthy. I am perfect. I am good here as I am. And that's the energy. That is the embodiment that I wish for all of you, because it's so available to you. And I know that because guys, if I can do it, you can do it. Truly. I know I've said this, and I haven't said this in a long time on the podcast. So if you've been listening from early days of the podcast, I'm just a girl from a small town in Colorado. I used to literally raise goats growing up, and I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the path or the steps illuminated for me to create the shifts and changes that I have in my life, or to manifest everything that I have. But regardless of that, I've found the way anyways. And it's come through allowing myself to be open enough, to be vulnerable enough to ask for guidance, to work with life coaches, to work with healers, to work with people who could help me identify the things within myself that I couldn't identify. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast episode, I wouldn't have identified that my worth was attached to my work if it wasn't for hiring my life coach and working with him. We all have our blind spots. We all have things that we cannot see within ourselves. And when you are wanting to create some sort of powerful shift and change in your life, it really does require you to be in the presence of somebody else, to open yourself up and be vulnerable to somebody who has the right tools to help you create the shift that you desire to see. And what I can say, especially based off of this conversation with worth being attached to work, that doesn't mean that it's going to halt your results in your work, or it's going to stop you from achieving what you desire, or any of those things. In fact, it's probably going to help excel that. It has for me. There's been so much less pressure that I have put on business, money, working, so on and so forth. And I've really just taken all of that energy and refocused it on my heart, my soul, what I need to nourish my mind, body, and soul. And as a byproduct of that, the podcast continues to grow, the business continues to grow, the impact continues to grow, my finances continue to grow. And that is the reality of what can happen when you step into your feminine essence and when you detach your worth from your work. So if the message of this podcast episode has resonated with you, this is why you want to join the source. The source will help you reconnect to your heart, to your soul, to your intuition, to your feminine essence, and really step into this energy of magnetism and inspiration versus feeling like you have to work so damn hard all the time to achieve what it is that you want in this life. And this isn't a manifestation program, quote unquote manifestation program. This is very different than the Abundant AF Babe Academy, if you've heard me talk about the academy. But the natural essence of the feminine energy is magnetizing. So it ties into it, which is so cool. It's so powerful. So if you've learned about manifestation, but you haven't learned to embody your feminine essence, this is the perfect opportunity for you. If you haven't learned about manifestation, but you want to learn about the feminine essence, this is the perfect opportunity for you. And like I said, there are 2 spots left with an additional one-on-one coaching call with me throughout the duration of the program. So if there's ever been a perfect time to join the source, it would be now. But I really hope that this podcast episode has brought you some level of awareness as well as hope and healing of how you can take the steps to move forward to return home to yourself and know that your worth is not in question. It never has been, it never will be, and you have the power within you to have, be, and do whatever it is that you desire in this lifetime. That is all that I have for you on today's podcast episode. So I'm sending you all of my love, and I will chat with you on the next one.